Cruise lines collected over $900 million last year from fees, upgrades, and services that most passengers overpaid for simply because nobody ever told them the rules behind the curtain. I spent years working inside the cruise industry, watching how the whole system is built to quietly drain your wallet from the moment you step on board until the moment you leave. Most guests think a cruise is fixed price and predictable, and that is exactly the illusion they want you to believe. The truth is, the ship is running on hundreds of tiny decisions that either save you hundreds of dollars or cost you hundreds of dollars, and almost none of it is explained to you at check-in. I am about to give you 15 insider tricks that cruise lines genuinely hope you never find out, and number 11 alone has saved passengers hundreds of dollars on a single sailing. Before we get into it, if you are the kind of traveler who wants to sail smarter instead of getting quietly overcharged, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps more people find these videos. And subscribe to Senior Cruise Secrets so you never miss the next set of insider tricks, because the cruise industry changes its policies constantly, and staying updated is the only way to stay ahead of them. Number 1. Ask for unsold cabin upgrades on day 2. Ask for unsold cabin upgrades on day 2. Here is something the cruise line will never announce over the intercom, because if they did, every single cabin upgrade would sell out in minutes, and they would lose the leverage of discounting them quietly instead. On embarkation day, the ship still has a handful of unsold balcony and suite cabins, and cruise lines would rather fill them at a steep discount than sail with them empty, since an empty cabin earns nothing at all. The trick is timing, because if you ask on day 1, the system has not finished processing no-shows and last-minute cancellations yet, so the inventory looks fuller than it actually is. Walk up. Mention that you would consider an upgrade if anything becomes available, and ask what the current rate would be for moving from your category into an open balcony or suite. Passengers who do this regularly report upgrades for a fraction of the original brochure price, sometimes moving from an interior cabin into a balcony for less than the cost of one specialty dinner. The lesson here is simple. The ship never wants you to know that unsold inventory exists, because scarcity makes people pay full price without asking any questions. Number 2, bring your own wine on embarkation day to avoid inflated drink prices. Bring your own wine on embarkation day to avoid inflated drink prices. Here is the part that catches new cruisers off guard every single time, because the drink prices you see on menus once you are already on board are almost always higher than what most travelers expect from a land-based restaurant, and there is a reason for that. Once you are out at sea, you have no competing bar down the street, so the ship becomes the only option, and pricing reflects that captive audience. Most major cruise lines allow each stateroom to bring aboard 1 or 2 bottles of wine on embarkation day without a corkage fee if you drink it in your cabin, and this policy is barely advertised because the bar and lounge revenue depends on you not knowing it exists. Pack your bottle in your carry-on rather than your checked luggage, since checked bags sometimes get held and returned later in the cruise, and carry-on bottles usually clear security at the terminal without any issue. The bigger principle behind this trick applies to almost everything on board, because anything you can plan for in advance almost always costs less than the same thing purchased impulsively once you are already at sea. Number 3, report cabin problems within the first 48 hours or lose your chance. Report cabin problems within the first 48 hours or lose your chance. Here is something cruise lines count on more than almost anything else, because the moment your bags are unpacked and you have already slept a night in that cabin, most passengers psychologically give up on complaining, even if something is genuinely wrong. The moment you walk into your cabin, check everything: the air conditioning, the plumbing, the television, the balcony door seal, and the condition of the furniture, because any defect reported within that first day or 2 is treated as the ship's responsibility to fix or compensate, while the same complaint on day 5 is treated as something you should have mentioned earlier. If your air conditioning is weak, your toilet runs constantly, or your balcony door does not seal properly, document it with a photo or video immediately and report it to guest services in person rather than by phone, because in-person complaints tend to get logged and escalated faster. Passengers who report issues early are far more likely to receive onboard credit, a complimentary dinner, or even a cabin change, while passengers who wait are usually told that nothing can be done at this point in the sailing. If this is already changing how you are thinking about your next cruise, that is exactly the point of this channel, so make sure you are subscribed, because the next few tricks are the ones that most passengers never even hear about until years into their cruising life. And honestly, some cruise employees are not even supposed to mention them out loud. Number 4. Visit specialty restaurants at lunch for the same food at a fraction of the price. Visit specialty restaurants at lunch for the same food at a fraction of the price. Here is a pricing gap that most passengers never notice, because the specialty restaurants on board almost always charge a flat cover fee, and that fee stays exactly the same whether you show up at noon or at 8 in the evening. The kitchen staff, the ingredients, and often the entire menu are essentially identical at lunch, yet the ship counts on the romantic idea of a formal dinner to fill those tables at night, while lunch seating in the same restaurant often sits half empty. Booking a lunch reservation at the steakhouse or the Italian specialty restaurant instead of dinner routinely saves a significant percentage off the cover charge, sometimes as much as half, while giving you the exact same appetizers, the exact same cuts of meat, and the exact same desserts you would get if you paid full price that evening. If a lunch slot is not available on a sea day, ask specifically about port days, since specialty restaurants are often nearly empty while most passengers are ashore, making it easier to book and sometimes easier to negotiate an even better rate directly with the host. Number 5. Turn off automatic credit card charges before they start. Turn off automatic credit card charges before they start. Here is something that catches even experienced cruisers by surprise, because the moment you check in, your onboard account is automatically linked to a credit card, and every single purchase from soda to specialty coffee to that souvenir photo gets charged instantly without you ever seeing a receipt. The system is built for convenience, but convenience here means friction-free spending, and friction-free spending is exactly what drives up the final bill that shows up on disembarkation morning as a surprise. Before your cruise even begins, log into your account through the cruise line's app or website and review exactly which card is linked, and consider linking a prepaid card with a fixed limit instead of your primary credit card so that your spending has a hard ceiling built in automatically. Throughout the cruise, check your folio balance daily through the app rather than waiting until the final night, because catching an unexpected charge on day 2 is far easier to dispute than catching 5 unexpected charges on the last night when guest services lines stretch out the door. Number 6. Wait until port days for massive spa discounts. Wait until port days for massive spa discounts. Here is a pattern that barely anyone outside the spa staff actually understands, because the spa on a cruise ship makes almost all of its real profit on sea days, when the ship is full of passengers with nowhere else to go and plenty of free time to fill. Booking a massage, a facial, or access to the thermal suite specifically on a port day, rather than a sea day, routinely gets you a noticeably lower price, and in many cases staff will proactively offer a discount once they see the schedule sitting mostly empty. If you plan to skip a port because you have already visited that destination before, or simply prefer a relaxed day on board, that is precisely the moment to walk down to the spa and ask directly what same-day discounts are available, since the answer is almost always more generous than anything advertised in the daily program. This single habit alone can save more on wellness services across a single sailing than almost any other trick on this list. Number 7. Claim compensation when your luggage arrives late. Claim compensation when your luggage arrives late. Here is something most passengers do not realize applies to them, because when checked luggage does not arrive at your cabin within a reasonable window after boarding, that delay is treated internally as a service failure, not simply bad luck. And service failures come with a compensation policy attached. If dinner time arrives and your suitcase still has not shown up, call guest services and explain clearly that your luggage has not been delivered, since ships generally have a target delivery window, and missing that window is documented and tracked. In many cases, you are entitled to a complimentary toiletry kit, a loaner formal outfit if you missed a dress code event because of the delay, or even onboard credit as an apology. But almost none of this is offered automatically. It is offered when asked. This trick matters most on embarkation day itself, since that is the single day when luggage delivery delays are most common across the entire industry, simply due to the sheer volume of bags being sorted at once. Quick reminder before we keep going, these tricks work best when you actually use them in the moment, rather than just watching and nodding along. So, if you want a simple way to remember all 15, drop a comment saying which number surprised you the most. It helps me know exactly what to cover next, and it helps other travelers scroll down and find the tip that matters to them. Number 8. Ask for complimentary seasickness medicine instead of buying it. Ask for complimentary seasickness medicine instead of buying it. Here is something the gift shop counts on heavily, because motion sickness tablets sold in the ship's shop are marked up significantly compared to what the exact same medication costs on land, and most passengers simply buy it out of pure desperation the moment they start feeling queasy. What almost nobody realizes is that the medical center on board typically keeps a supply of basic seasickness remedies that they will hand out free of charge or for a token fee if you simply ask, since preventing seasickness is genuinely in the ship's interest, because a sick passenger uses more medical resources later. Before spending money at the gift shop, visit or call guest services and ask whether the medical center provides complimentary motion sickness relief, and mention any rough seas forecast for the day, since staff are generally happy to help rather than watch you overpay for the same relief a few decks away. Number 9. Print your account mid-cruise to catch hidden billing errors. Print your account mid-cruise to catch hidden billing errors. Here is a habit that catches more billing mistakes than almost anything else on this entire list, because your onboard folio updates constantly, and errors, duplicate charges, and mistaken room service fees are far more common than most passengers assume, especially on longer sailings with heavy foot traffic through bars and specialty venues. Waiting until the final night to review your account means you are trying to untangle an entire week of charges in a single stressful sitting, often while standing in a long line with dozens of other passengers doing exactly the same thing at exactly the same time. Instead, visit guest services or use the app around the midpoint of your cruise and request a printed or digital summary of every charge so far, then actually read through it line by line while your memory of the week is still fresh and specific. This single habit alone routinely uncovers charges worth real money that would otherwise slip through completely unnoticed. Number 10. Request free cabin extras like mattress toppers, fans, and better pillows. Request free cabin extras like mattress toppers, fans, and better pillows. Here is something cabin stewards rarely advertise out loud, because these comfort items exist in limited supply, and the ship has no incentive to announce their existence to hundreds of cabins at once. A steward typically has access to a small stock of mattress toppers, extra pillows, portable fans, and even foam wedges for better back support. But these items are given out on a first-come basis to guests who simply ask early rather than being distributed automatically to everyone. The moment you settle into your cabin, introduce yourself to your steward. Mention specifically what would improve your comfort, whether that is a firmer or softer pillow, a topper for the mattress, or a small fan for airflow, and ask if any are currently available. Being specific and early with this request costs nothing and routinely upgrades your entire sleeping experience for the rest of the sailing. Number 11. Being polite to guest services can unlock perks most passengers never get. Being polite to guest services can unlock perks most passengers never get. Here is the trick that consistently produces the biggest results out of everything on this list, because the entire onboard service culture runs on discretionary authority, meaning staff members are often personally allowed to offer small perks, upgrades, or complimentary items at their own judgment, and that judgment is heavily influenced by how they are treated. Guest services and cabin staff deal with an enormous volume of frustrated, demanding, and occasionally rude passengers every single day, so a guest who is calm, warm, and genuinely friendly stands out immediately and is remembered for the rest of the sailing. Learning your steward's name, thanking them specifically, and treating a guest services agent like a person rather than an obstacle routinely results in complimentary drinks, room upgrades when available, priority handling of complaints, and small comfort items appearing in your cabin without you ever formally requesting them. Passengers who understand this single principle often report a noticeably better cruise experience than passengers who spent far more money on upgrades and packages but treated staff as invisible. Number 12. Book shore excursions independently and save hundreds of dollars. Book shore excursions independently and save hundreds of dollars. Here is one of the largest markups on the entire ship because shore excursions sold directly through the cruise line typically include a substantial commission built into the price. Since the cruise line is essentially reselling a tour that a local operator already runs at a much lower direct rate, the exact same snorkeling trip, the exact same waterfall hike, or the exact same city tour is very often available by booking directly with a local licensed operator at the port, either in advance online or occasionally in person at the dock, for a noticeably lower price than the ship charges for the identical experience. For port days involving simple activities like a beach visit, a walking tour, or a well-known landmark, independent booking is almost always both cheaper and less crowded than the ship-sponsored version of the same excursion. The savings across a full week of port stops can easily add up to hundreds of dollars for a couple, which is often enough to fund an entire extra excursion or a nice dinner on a future sailing. Number 13. Request Wi-Fi credits if the internet does not work. Request Wi-Fi credits if the internet does not work. Here is something almost nobody thinks to ask for because most passengers simply assume that slow or unreliable internet at sea is just an unavoidable part of cruising, when in reality, most cruise lines have a formal policy for refunding or crediting internet packages that consistently fail to deliver the promised speed. If your connection repeatedly drops, will not load basic pages, or falls far short of what you paid for, take a screenshot of a speed test showing the poor performance and bring it directly to the internet desk or guest services rather than simply giving up and living with it for the rest of the trip. Staff are generally authorized to issue a partial or full credit toward your internet package once you show clear evidence that the service is not performing as advertised. But this credit is essentially never offered proactively, since the ship has no financial incentive to volunteer a refund for a service you already paid for in advance. Document the problem as it happens rather than waiting until the final day, since a credit is far easier to secure while the sailing is still ongoing than after you have already disembarked. Number 14. Check for cruise fare drops before final payment and ask for a price adjustment. Check for cruise fare drops before final payment and ask for a price adjustment. Here is a pricing quirk that the cruise industry genuinely hopes most passengers never notice, because cruise fares fluctuate constantly between the time you book and the time your final payment is due, often dropping significantly if a sailing is not filling up as quickly as the cruise line originally projected. Many cruise lines will honor a price adjustment if the same cabin category on your exact sailing drops in publicly listed price before your final payment deadline. But this adjustment is essentially never applied automatically. It is applied only when a passenger specifically calls and requests it. In the weeks leading up to your final payment date, check the cruise line's own website or a reputable travel agent periodically for the current listed price of your cabin category. And if it has dropped since you booked, call and simply ask for the lower rate to be applied to your existing reservation. Passengers who make this a habit on every booking routinely secure a lower fare, additional onboard credit, or a cabin category upgrade for the same price they originally agreed to pay. Number 15. Never buy duty-free jewelry until you compare prices online first. Never buy duty-free jewelry until you compare prices online first. Here is the final trick, and honestly one of the most important ones on this entire list, because the jewelry sold in duty-free shops on board is marketed heavily around the idea of a limited time discount available only during your cruise, and that sense of urgency is deliberately designed to prevent you from comparing prices anywhere else. The reality is that the exact same brand, the exact same cut, and often the exact same piece is frequently available from reputable jewelers on land for a similar or sometimes even lower price once you actually take the time to look, especially once taxes, appraisal costs, and return policies are factored in. Before making any significant jewelry purchase on board, take a photo of the piece along with its listed price. And if possible, note the brand and item number, Then simply wait until you have internet access or are back on land to compare that exact price against other retailers before committing to anything. This single habit of pausing before a big purchase has saved cruisers far more money over the years than almost any other single decision made during a sailing. Those are the 15 tricks that cruise lines genuinely hope you never put together into one simple checklist, because used together, they routinely save a couple hundreds of dollars across a single sailing, while making the entire experience noticeably smoother from the moment you board until the moment you walk off the ship. If even one of these helped you see your next cruise differently, do me a favor and hit subscribe here on Senior Cruise Secrets, because new insider tricks like these go up regularly, and the cruise industry rarely announces its own rules out loud, so somebody has to. Drop a comment letting me know which one of these 15 you are trying on your very next sailing. Share this with a friend or family member who has a cruise coming up so they do not leave money on the table, and I will see you in the next video with even more secrets the cruise lines would rather keep to themselves.